welcome back to the podcast. I hope you have all had a brilliant Christmas and New Year. This week's guest is Chris McClure. Chris is the brother of Reverend and the Makers frontman John McClure, and he is also one of the most famous faces in indie. He's the front cover of the fastest selling debut album by the Arctic Monkeys. We spoke about his friendship with the Arctic Monkeys, the Sheffield scene, his own band The Violet May, and his battle with alcohol addiction and what he's doing now. And at the end we also chose his 4 heroes to come for dinner. Hope you all enjoy the podcast, and I'll be back again in a few weeks with another fabulous guest. Thanks very much.
Right, thank you very much for coming on the show, Chris McClure. If people aren't aware of you, you're probably one of the most famous faces in Britain. You're the front cover of the Arctic Monkeys debut album. Whatever people say I am, that's what I'm not. The fastest selling debut album ever, I'm led to believe. So, grew up in Sheffield. That's how you know Arctic Monkeys. Just tell us what life is like growing up for a young kid, how you went to school, education, and get into kind of music and stuff like that.
Firstly, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. I grew up in Sheffield, north of Sheffield, with my mum and dad, my brother John, who's 4 years older than me, and I suppose to give listeners some context, probably like 2 miles away, probably less, 1.5 miles away from Hillsborough, Sheffield Wednesday's football ground. Mm-hmm. I was saying Sheffield's built on 7 cities, like Rome. And we were at really north at City, like near Barnsley end. But yeah, I mean, it just seemed. I mean, mum and dad were they were both working class. My mum was one of 7, and she was born in Hillsborough. My dad was from a place called Workington in Cumbria, and moved down here on his own at 21.
Right.
Probably to escape the grimness of that place, really.
Yeah.
And they were both working class, but they dedicated their lives to healthcare, really, to being nurses.
Right.
And I think that had a big effect on me and our kid, really. Don't get me wrong, we weren't poor by any stretch. I'm not going to romanticize some working class background, but we weren't flush either. We were taught value of money, and just good memories, really. Like my mum's side, I didn't have my dad's side of the family. It was strange because obviously I'd only see him on holidays and stuff, and I didn't feel as connected to him. But my mum's side of the family, because they were so large, I mean, it's a bit of a joke in Sheffield that me and our kid, we go on a night out, we meet a new cousin every time we go out, like oh, I'm related to you somehow. It's like one of them, like 60 cousins and that. But I personally have lovely memories of growing up. It were like football, my first love.
Mm-hmm.
I at time would like between like 91 and 94. My football club, Sheffield Wednesday, had it was golden era basically.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember it feeling magical, like really magical. We were in cup finals, and I remember that feeling magical. And I was right into musicals as a kid, like, massively. I had this like suitcase, and it was stacked full of VHSs for like Oliver Twist and like Carousel and like. I were obsessed. My mum used to take me to the theatre and stuff, and that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to get on a stage in theatre. I just ended up doing like local pantomime and that. Yeah, and it was just. Yeah, I fancied it, but like live theatre, I don't know where it had come from. I remember like putting on shows for me like aunties and that in house and stuff, and I'd like memorize Oliver Twist from start to finish, every word. I still love that soundtrack now.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like, you can imagine, I was decent at footy, I would think. I played for young girls stuff, and you can imagine going up to your manager on a Sunday and saying, I can't come to match next week because I've got pantomime practice. You know, it don't go down well. But yeah, so it were like, you know, traditional working class roots really. And
you just going back to the football, see Sheffield Wednesday, because I'm a Celtic fan, so obviously you get the Glasgow Derby, Celtic Rangers, all these other derbies throughout the world. What's the script with Sheffield? What's it kind of based on? It's
nasty. It's nasty. It's nasty one.
Right.
It's I don't think it gets to, obviously, because fortunes at clubs for the last 25 years, you don't get national press, but like when they play, it's full on. It tends to be, roughly speaking, although I think it's changed with demographics now, but it used to be north side at City were blue,
right,
and south side at City were red. I suppose if I'm being completely honest here and take my bias head off, I suppose they see us as like upper selves and like think we have this joke that we're massive and like we're a massive club and blah. They see themselves as underdog who like to come and like upset apple cart almost. That was traditionally what it were like.
Yeah.
But that's changed a bit with people, you know, different economics.
These are both lower leagues now, aren't these? Because when I was young, Sheffield Wednesday were in the first division now. Actually, we're a lot bigger than they are now.
Yeah, and I mean, fan base is still there. But I mean, that's what I mean. In '93, when I was 7, we had Chris Waddle and David Hurst and these sort of players, and we were full of internationals. And in '93, we got to FA Cup semi-final, and we drew Sheffield United in semi-final at FA Cup, which is huge for City. Like, it was biggest thing. Even now, it's still the biggest thing I've ever experienced. And they were going to play at Ellen Road, but demand were as such that they had to take it to Wembley. And we beat them 2-1, and it's still to this day the greatest day of my life.
Yeah,
probably. But yeah, I remember they were biggest evacuation since war. There were 90,000 Sheffielders in London.
Right.
But yeah, it's a big rivalry, but it don't get the press because of where teams are. I mean, they've both been mismanaged, and it's like any like big city like Glasgow, Manchester, Birmingham. These working class cities, the rivalry is fierce, isn't it?
Yeah, it's tribal, isn't it?
Yeah, and I get it. You know what I mean? And it actually affects you, but it's weird because like you hang about with United fans and you work with them, so there's a different sort of hatred for Leeds because of Yorkshire and that sort of vibe. And Leeds we always joke saying Leeds have never had any bands. They had Gang of Four, didn't they? Never had any bands, and they've only got one club, so we always turn his nose up at Leeds.
Yeah, see, I mean, I'm kind of similar with it. See the amount of the bands, and I don't know if it's just the way I look at it, but see all the decent Scottish bands like Celtic, and there's only like a couple like Rangers, like Wet, 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 and stuff like that. That's the way I see
that's it.
Probably no. There's probably some decent bands, but I can't think of any.
Same in Sheffield, Wednesday fans, Richard Orley, Pulp, Evan 17, Arctic Monkeys, Revenant Makers, Milburn, every band or every creative type goes to Blue Side. Make of that what you will.
Yeah. No,
I think they've got...
That's been spoke about quite a bit up here, right? It's all the creative types are into sell it.
Yeah. Well, you know, I'm not saying too much, but make of that what you will.
This is going to alienate half my listeners now with all this Celtic and Sheffield Wednesday chat.
Nah, it's football, isn't it?
So you were decent at football, but
yeah, I mean, I were never going to be professional, but I enjoyed playing and like to a decent level, and that's like, well, we were quite a fit young lad, and I liked sport and being active, and I was happy and full of life, and like I said, we were banging to musicals, and I suppose music. And then my brother was 4 years older, so in like 96, let's say 96, I'm 10 years old. My brother's 14, so that between that 96, 98 period, my brother starts bringing music into house. His music that he's listening to. I mean, my dad sort of played as My dad was like really into soul and Motown, but he also liked stuff like UB40, which were massive in our house. And I think UB40, I mean, I'm not saying our 10-year-old like understanding politics or UB40's music, it was just Red Red Wine and that sort of stuff. But I remember listening to 1 in 10 in house and listening to lyrics and going, wow, like, I'm a middle-aged businessman with chronic heart disease. I'm another teenage suicide in the street that has no trees. And I remember that like really, really resounding with me and thinking, wow, that's like so real. They're writing about places I recognise. But then really my brother's influence, well, of course it is. I'm 10 years old. My brother's going out downtown and he's getting Oasis records and bringing them into house and Stone Roses records, and like a lot of people, it changed everything really.
Practically everybody I've had in the podcast says the same. Oasis.
It's huge. It's so woven into his culture. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, like some of the bands, like some of the people I've had on, like as I say, Alfie for the Hollowways, Lloyd for the Paddingtons, bands that don't sound anything like Oasis. And I wouldn't have expected them to be an influence, but Oasis has been an influence in everything. I
think even if you don't appreciate them as musically as maybe some other artists, like I think the fact that two brothers, working class brothers from a council estate, did it. If you can't get belief from that, then you know you might as well give up, man.
Yeah, I mean, I remember the everyday inspiration then, didn't it? To kind of, so is that kind of what progressed John into the music? When did he start?
Yeah,
bands?
I remember, like, I mean, bearing in mind, I don't claim like that was my period of music. I was 10, you know what I mean? What do I know at 10? I was still doing Macarena. I would listen to Supersonic one day and do Macarena next. It weren't like, you know, so, but I remember my brother, like, we both went to a Catholic school, Notre Dame, even though we weren't Catholic. But I think my mother bought, like, priest a bottle of whiskey and he wrote a letter to school and they got us in. Bizarre. And I thought we had to pretend to be Catholic when we were there, but it turns out we didn't. But that's, and I remember my brother, like, as he entered college sort of years, I'm 12, and he were bringing like random kids back and like playing on an acoustic guitar. And I just never saw our kid as being in a band. Growing up, there was no inkling that he was going to start a band. And even when he did start playing, it was like, come on, man, get a grip. There were a period where he got right into crooning and that. Like, he was always trying different things and like, but he's that sort of character. Like, I can do that. And I think so when I'm like 4, so my brothers brought all this music in. My first experience were a band called Milburn in Sheffield, and they brought a CD into school, gave it me, and said, "What do you reckon to that? Maybe you could be a singer." I remember Lewis saying, when my head was just nowhere near it. Listen to it. It sounded like Thin Lizzy, which is laughable, man. But and they were the first ones to get a band together. They're my age, so like 4 years below my brother, and they're first ones to do it. They're like Pugwall. Remember that program? Like teenagers had a band. They're like, they're like in community centre down road, and they grew up in village next, like not village, but area next door, and they're like from 12-year-old in a band. And it got to like when we were like 15, I'd say, and they started doing gigs in town. And for me, they're the ones that like started it, getting, because you know, if you were lucky, you could get a pint, you could get a drink. If you were tall like me, you'd be able to get served. So it were a big night out at school if they were playing in town.
Right.
And they'd just do a mix of covers and like cover versions and their own stuff, and you know. But it got everyone together is the important thing. So
what year would this be in about?
I've probably skipped a little bit. Really, but going back to my brother's influence on music, like it were always like me borrowing his CDs and me listening to to him what were cool and what weren't. And I remember 90s, and I remember it being exciting. I remember soap opera around the way. So I remember it being around, but then there seemed to be this weird period between like 98 and 2001 where everything, it felt really, really, we were just still gagging for it. We were watching Oasis gigs, man, and like they weren't really our band. Limp Bizkit on like headlining festivals, and you're like, this does nothing for me. And like literally, I'm not romanticizing this. Literally, when Is This It dropped by Strokes, everything changed. Again,
the same thing. Everybody says it. The Strokes, and then the Libertines, and then that was just kick-starting everything.
So Strokes come out. Another one I would mention, other album is The Streets, debut album. That had a big influence on all my friendship group and circle, because we could understand, we could relate to what he was saying, Skinner, and you know, and it sounded different to us because it weren't drudgy indie music. It sounded different to us. It sounded exciting. So the Streets album and Strokes, and then there seemed to be a bit of a wave, and it were like, hold on a minute, we've got a band here. In Stroke, we've got a band that are cool and sound cool, and we can give the CD to them lads that are 4 years older than us, and so listen to that. And they were like, yeah, this is cool. They're onto something here. Like, this is amazing. And I remember when I was at college, Lewis Carnell, who was the guitarist in Milburn, said, have you heard this? Come in here and listen to this. And he played What a Waster by Libertines. And that were probably like, I think everyone has that moment where they hear a track and go, oh my God, what is that? Give me that. I don't want anything else but that. What is it? And we just went obsessed with Libertines. Everybody. And how they looked, how they dressed, how they sounded.
Everybody was wanting the red tunics, weren't they?
Yeah, I think Alex Turner once wore a red tunic, you know. He's never mentioned it, but I remember Alex Turner going to a choral gig in a red tunic. And because we went chorals, they were a cool band, and it just seemed to like snowball then. But no, at this point, people in Sheffield are just forming bands. It's not real. We're just listening to this and going around country watching it. And then you notice people have got like, I remember a big gig where Strokes at Alexandra Palace, and they must have been like 40 of us down in London, only like 16. And we were all boozing in Leicester Square, and we were all on tubes, and it felt like we were part of something. And then the next bit is everyone else forming, the people in Sheffield forming bands.
Yeah, because eventually the kind of penny drops, and you think, why we fucking off down to London when we could be going doing our own gigs and things like that? And then that's when you get a scene.
This is it. And I remember going to, it's really hard to describe. I'll try and do it in a short way to describe how weird it were at the time, because I played for a Sunday League football team called Ecclesfield Red Rose. In that team, there were me, all of Milburn, Jamie Cook from Arctic Monkeys. So there's like, and obviously I'm linking our kid up. Like there's a big weird thing going on with this football team, and everyone's like into bands watching them, and everyone's going to Milburn gigs. So once we're going to these gigs at a place called Boardwalk in Sheffield, which is where the Clash played their first ever gig, supported Sex Pistols, and we were going there. And you could recognise the people that had dressed same as you, really. They had like, we used to write, ridiculous, man. We used to write on his jeans like Doherty. And, and the bus used to stop outside Boardwalk, the last bus. If you missed that, you'd had it. You had to walk it, and it's a long way. So we used to jump on bus, and I'd get off. If me or my brother got on it, and Arctic Monkeys got on it, Andy from Monkeys would get off in Hillsborough. Me and my brother would get off in Grenoside, and they'd get off in High Green. It were like, they were the stops.
Right.
And that's really how we struck up a friendship.
The fact that he must have been decimated. See where you've all been in that team.
Oh, yeah.
And then
I remember that night we went to Alexandra Palace, we were in a massive quarter-final next day. And it was like we'd never got that far in Cup. And me and 3 lads we had to get a coach. And we missed it because Tube were packed, so we got a taxi to Golders Green and missed coach, and we lost it. We never made it. We got back to Sheffield next day, and we'd lost 3-0, and that's where Cup Dream went.
But you've seen a decent gig. You can always
it was an amazing gig. So then at that point, I don't even think Monkeys are actually like playing live at this point. I think they're just like, we know them and they're really sound and they're cool because they dress cool. And my brother's kind of got this thing called Judan Suke, like a weird funk band sort of thing going on. And Monkeys play their first ever gig at the Grapes pub above the pub, like a little Irish pub. And if you listen to people in Sheffield, you'd think there were 80,000 there, but I promise you I were there. There were me, our kid, a lad called Richard Rice, who we sadly lost. There were about 25 people upstairs in this pub.
Right.
And a band called Harrisons, who eventually signed to Sony, I think, played. And they were a band called The Sound On before Monkeys. Mm-hmm. And they recorded the gig and left it running by accident and captured first ever Monkeys gig. And drummer stupidly put it on LimeWire like a few years after. They could have been sat on an absolute gold mine.
But I mean, but that's the thing back then as well. They were Arctic Monkeys were releasing everything, leaking everything online anyway. Because I mean, everybody had the CD. There was what was it? There was one about a train or something. The last train or something.
Yeah. Oh, Choo Choo, something
like
that.
I don't know where you would get them now.
I think I've got a few in attic. Pension in it.
Sending one down then.
But even at that time, like I don't think we were aware of anything online at that time. It literally like you go into bands that I knew were going into the studio recording at a place called Two Fly in Alan Smythe's studio. They were getting loads of CDs burned, putting the numbers on front of it, and leaving them at gigs. At best, charging £1. Mm-hmm. And then something seemed to shift. My brother changed bands to some. So Alex and Elders used to join Judan Suke on stage. And then Monkeys kind of wrote a new batch of songs. And my brother changed bands to a band called 1984. And these were, 1984 actually were quite good. And it was like, hold on a minute. This ain't bad, this. This is not me trying to big up my brother, but I think my brother were very clever in noticing what the Libertines were doing in London with this DIY ethic and making it quite making fans feel involved and making it quite secretive and cryptic where you were going to do a gig. Mm-hmm. And my brother were like, why aren't we doing this up here? Yeah. And we'd do stuff. So he'd do stuff like tell me to like get a load of people to meet him on a bridge in Sheffield at like 7:30 at night, and we'll walk you to a gig. Mm-hmm. And people started to buy into it, like they were in, and I don't know, just like little things. Like I remember doing he did one underneath Boardwalk, and people had to meet us in a certain bar, but we're getting clues to where bar were. And next thing you'd be marching like 30, like 40 kids down middle of Sheffield to this like cellar.
Yeah.
And you start to think.
The only band that done anything similar to that was Embrace. Can you mind them?
Really?
They done like they were putting on secret gigs, and it was like things like that. Meet at this train station, and there'll be a map for you to follow, and you
brilliant, man.
They done like about 30 secret gigs early space of maybe about 5 years or something. So they were like,
what people
in that in the 90s.
What people have got to understand is as well, we were used to seeing like stadium-sized bands, Oasis and Mannix and them sort of bands, like where you were so separated from that world. Mm-hmm. Like, it were just us and them, like, and they were good because it were grand. But then what Libertines did was just smashed all that and were like, we're on a level with you.
Yeah.
It made everybody's equal.
Yeah. So that's like, there's a thing going on now. There's something going on in Sheffield. People are starting to stir. There's more people joining that scene. There's a few other bands, and it's like, all right, something's kicking off. But still, there's no smell of any sort of like record interest. And I think while my brother turns into Reverend and the Makers, Andy, the bass player, called him the Reverend because he were always preaching.
Right.
And it seemed at this point that everyone were in a band, or everyone were working for a band, or everyone knew someone that were working in a band, and there's just bands prop everywhere. But still, no one's like hit it strong yet. And then for me, I'm probably, whether this is correct and whether nostalgia or something's blinding me, but this is how I see it. There were a gig. It's a very special gig for me, and it's become a bit of a legendary gig. And once again, it's one of these like secret ones. And there's a band called the Harrisons from Hillsborough, who were a tough set of lads. They didn't mind a rumble. And they were 1984 stroke Revenant Makers and Arctic Monkeys, and they were going to play in this like they were going to play. If you look at the single on where the sun goes down, that's their old practice room.
Right.
And the gig were going to be in here at like 11 o'clock at night. So we all went and got loads of booze from shops, and everyone piles on. It were a recipe for disaster from the start, because downside to this is there's no stewarding or like security. You just got loads of off your head kids in an olfactory room, and something had been said on stage between bands, and there's an atmosphere going off. But next thing, like an absolute riot kicks off. The whole place goes up between like Harrison's lot and Monkey's lot and our lot, and it's like, I know it's like a fucking OK Corral in there. And everyone eventually got cleared out. My brother's bass player's trying to find his gold tooth on the floor. There's like a pool. There's been pool table here, so all balls have gone. It's all ripped, and Monkeys were like really upset. They started packing up the stuff, and we're like, there were like 6 or 7 of us left, and we're like, nah, come on, play. We've come, man. You've got to play. And they played. And they played like fake. I'm sure they played like Fake Tales of San Francisco, Dance Floor. It was when these songs had just come, and it was. And I remember at that point thinking, "Oh my God, these are going to end it. These are on another level now." And I think that's the night that A Certain Romance were written about.
Right. That's brilliant.
Yeah, and I remember like a couple of weeks after, Alex came up for a pint, like, to my local pub, and he were like, it were awful, weren't it? And I was like, yeah, it were pretty bad. And he's like, I've written a tune about it. You're gonna proper dig it. You're gonna proper, because we used to have this saying, it sounds ridiculous this, but we used to have this saying, like, we could tell something special were in air. So my brother would say, like, you've got to see truth, lads, see the truth. We'd always say, like, see the truth. It was like a little motto we had. I've got it on my arm, but it looks like, I've got it on my arm. I'm showing Martin for listeners. But it looks like Lee the Truffle. Looks like Lee the Truffle, but it says see the truth.
Magic, mate. Cracking.
And I think that's what he means when he says, and there's the truth that they can't see. The probably, it were about like some specials going off. I don't know what we were trying to get at, and he said, I've wrote this tune. I can't wait till you hear it. And I think like that night, I remember being in my mum's kitchen, me, our kid and Alex, and he played it. And I was like, well, what are you going to... With them songs on that first record, as soon as you heard them, you knew.
Yeah. As I say, I mean, everybody throughout the country had all the stuff that was leaked online, and like.
And I think that's about the right time. It's some in background to all this, about this time, someone called Mark, who we called the Sheriff, he put them online. We didn't know how to do that in Oslo. We used to listen to CDs, We had MySpace, but he'd put them up online. And I don't think me and my friendship group or band really knew that what were going on online. I think we were all oblivious to what were going on off online.
Right.
But then you get like, I remember Andy ringing me going, you're not going to believe this, who was a bass player at the time. You're not going to believe this. What? someone has driven down from Aberdeen to watch us in Nottingham. And it were like, fucking hell, what? And like, that were blowing our heads, you know, literally blowing his heads off. And I lived in I went to uni in Manchester then, and they'd come over. I was obviously like, everyone who like were in my company, I was like, listen to this band, you're not going to believe this band. And I remember them coming to Manchester in my Oza residence, and obviously everyone in my Oza residence, there were like 10 of us, were like, we're going to watch them. So they played this gig in Manchester, and there's literally me and 9 people I live with and band. And then literally like 4 or 5 months later, they probably could have sold arena out.
Totally different story. It just goes so quick, doesn't it?
The rate of which it exploded were just fucking insane.
And then obviously with that as well comes them kicking down the door helps all the other bands get through.
Yeah, because everyone knew there was something special brewing up and down country, but you need that one band that's going to lead it all, who's got the songs to just take it to another level. And they were good enough. Do you know what I mean? And then my brother's got his thing going on at that time. He's Monkey's manager's like really into what my brother's doing. He's got a new setup, which is what you know as Revenant Makers.
Uh-huh.
And he's like he's working in a call centre and writing Heavyweight Champion and stuff like that.
Well, I mean, that's a good thing about it as well. With like your brother's band, it's no the same type of music. It's different kind of dancing kind of. So they're not too similar. But obviously, like Melbourne, when I first heard them, they sounded just like Arctic Monkeys. But that helps bands as well, you know what I mean? That's how I got into Melbourne, was through Arctic Monkeys. I probably wouldn't listen to them if it wasn't for them. But in the same way, it's good to be different the way your brother was as well.
Yeah, my brother took a lot of inspiration, I think. I mean, I can't speak for him, but I think he took a lot of inspiration from that. Sheffield's where electronic music were born, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Like, my brother took a lot of inspiration from that sound, Human League and Evan 17 and ABs, you know, and all that. And it almost like he paid respect to it and said, but then he still had the social commentary of what Alex was doing.
Yeah.
So it just made for a bit of a different sound, more electronic feel to it.
I mean, see, even the social commentary has got a lineage in it, because Jarvis Cocker was doing social commentary. You know what I mean?
I don't know if it's I don't know if that's a Sheffield thing almost. Like, I don't. But you look at stuff like that definitely hit home to people that they were talking about. So, like, you can all say Oasis for this and that, but Supersonic weren't really describing your life. Cigarettes and alcohol does maybe, but like when you're talking about stuff like Big on Dance Floor and Heavyweight Champion, people understand the sentiments of them songs straight away. Mm-hmm. It were a big draw to them bands.
Yeah. So at what point then did the prospect take a front cover? You've been on the front cover of an album. When did that get put to you?
So I were really, really close to Andy Nicholson, who was bass player.
Mm-hmm.
I was quite close with Al. Well, I was close with them all, but Andy, I was really close with Andy. Almost like brothers. And I went on to... So Monkeys were going to do their first UK tour, and they asked me to come on board. I'm saying this very loosely as a guitar tech. I couldn't even fucking tune a guitar. I think it was basically, let's have someone who we can trust on tour with us.
Yeah.
To just help out. So
every band needs a pal that they all know.
Yeah.
Everybody needs somebody like that on tour with them.
Yeah. So there were me.
A couple of boys like that. I know a couple of boys just like you.
Yeah, and you're not going to say no. So there were me, Tim Cleesby, who ended up being their tour manager, and band in a little splitter van. And it were fucking crazy, that tour, in terms of the crowds. Like, they were playing 200 venues when they could be selling academies out that road. They just accelerated that fast that promoters couldn't keep up with him and industry couldn't keep up with him. So I remember we were getting up to these little venues and there's people outside, like tickets were going for crazy price. I remember in Leicester, I think it was Charlotte, I think it was Leicester, they were climbing over a wall to get out of the venue, behind stage.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I worked with him on that tour and I did second tour, but on second, so there's me, band and two others, me included. And then I did second tour, which I did merchandise on that tour, again, just to get me on tour.
Mm-hmm.
And then it got to a stage where it were like, we knew it were going to get big, but not as big as it went. We just knew it were nailed on. They were signed now, albums ready to be recorded. And they said to me, look, you can have a job on tour if you want. But then I was studying at the time and I thought, I don't want to get to a point where I'm in an arena and I don't see him.
Yeah.
But I've got, it's not going to be the same. So I declined that and went back to uni and thought, just get on with it, lads. I love you, but yeah, that's it. And then I got a phone call from Andy Nicholson or Alex, one of them, and they said, would you have some photos? I think the concept of the record, the debut record, was it were almost a concept of a weekend in this guy's life.
Right.
Where he's finished work at 5:30, he's clocked off, he goes home, he has his tea, gets showered, he goes on this night out, and all the way around to like Sunday evening where certain romances they come down to it all.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would, and I think it were even going to be called a Weekend With at one point.
Right.
Weekend With the Arctic Monkeys. So I said, yeah, of course, I'm up for it. And they said for the actual inlay, they want some friends in the inlay, is what they said.
Right.
So I met this guy in Sheffield. We took some photos about 6:30 in the morning in certain locations. And then he said to me, the design company for the artwork are based in Liverpool. We'll go over to Liverpool. So we went over to Liverpool that day. And we're taking random photos with other people. And the main guy of the design company said, can I just get a full frontal of you smoking a cigarette just on a white background, just on this back street of Liverpool, just so I've got it. And he didn't say it was for a front cover, so we took that, and I didn't think what else of it. And then I'm in my flat in Manchester, and then Andy rings and says, we've seen this photograph and we love it. It's just your face smoking a cigarette. It looks so real and pure. Mm-hmm. But we need you to get drunk to do it. We need you off your head to do it because we want it to be genuine. So I'm like, okay. He's like, and even at that point, I didn't know if they were going to be front cover. And he was like, will you go to Liverpool? The company will pay for you and there'll be some money waiting for you. I'm like, what? So I'm like, all right. So it's a Saturday, and he said, you can bring a few mates. So I brought my cousin, Tommy, I've grown up with. I brought my mate Matt, who I grew up with, and we met this kid in Liverpool who lived there. And I walked into, I don't think it's there anymore, Carova Bar in Liverpool, and this guy is based this. He just gives me this massive wad of cash. I don't know how much were they, a lot of money. And he's like, don't come back until every penny of that is spent. And make sure you have a fucking good time. And we loved a drink. So you can imagine, we're on Stella and whiskey chasers at 11:30 in the morning. And it just got daft. We're just playing that little dream of chucking money about in Liverpool. So he rolls up to this bar about 11:30 at night, and this woman's like, you're not off your head enough. I'm absolutely off me nut. And this woman's like, you're not, we need, and she gave me this big joint, and I just stood outside this bar in Liverpool. It's Saturday night, so it's mad, and I'm just smoking this big joint in the middle of the road. And what happens, fucking world turns upside down in your head, and everyone's it's just, I'm in no man's land. And they're like, right, let's go downstairs. And I went downstairs to this little quiet room. So underground, but you could see everyone's feet walking past. She's sit on that stool and smoke all them cigarettes. And they were just snapping away. And then I ended up in Manchester. My mate ended up in Sheffield. Car was still in Liverpool. It was like carnage. I don't know what had happened. And then I got just whatever. And then a few weeks later, I got a phone call and it were Andy, and he said, like, I think Alex messaged as well, and he said, we want to use it for front cover as record. Just your face. We love it. That image is just so like what we're trying to get at, real. And I just said, yeah, but not thinking at all at any point, no conception of how big this were going to be.
No, but
I just thought it was going to be like
nobody could. You couldn't imagine it getting to that.
So it's all geared up and it's all ready to go, and it is what it is, and we can't wait for it to come out. But there's a massive buzz about it, and it's like wicked, and it will literally, like, on the Sunday, you went to bed and you were just like, whatever.
Yeah.
And on Monday morning, you're on every tube, you're on every bus, you're in Times Square, you're on like Trafalgar. It's like, fucking hell. And I remember my phone just wouldn't stop. My mum's ringing me saying, if there's press outside our house. I'm like, what? Because Monkeys didn't speak to press. Didn't have to. Didn't have to speak to them. Like, press were chasing them, not the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, fuck. And I remember going to a nightclub in Manchester, rang me up and said, listen, you can come, bring who you want. I'll give you top floor at nightclub. Like what? So, and just like your life changes overnight, literally overnight.
Right. But obviously, there's a downside to that as well, isn't there? Like, obviously, interviews like this, and like, how many times do you get asked about that album cover?
I would say it gets brought up once every 3 days, I would say, in my life.
Mental.
Which is mental, and I struggled a lot. I mean, don't get me wrong, God. When I went in head first, I thought, when in Rome, you're not going to go to bed at like 10 o'clock every night, are you?
Yeah.
We could get in anywhere we wanted. I remember getting like mad offers, like TV, E4, saying, do you want to come and present this show? Do you want to come and sit on Never Mind the Buzzcocks? Do you want to do? And I'm like, no. I said no. Sometimes I wonder in my head, would it have been easier to have just thrown everything in and said, right, I'm going to be a Z-list celebrity?
Yeah, I've been in the jungle and things like that.
Yeah, and just like get a manager and say, hey, get me as much money as I can out of this, because it's not going to last very long. But I didn't. What I tried to do was, of course, I had a good time, and it were always like, I met some amazing people through it, but I was always trying to maintain this like normal life at the same time, and it put me in a really weird place.
Mm.
For example, like, I've always worked. You earn money, do you know what I mean? I went into a training course once, and this will happen quite often. I'll walk in and there'll be like 20 people sat around this table waiting for this training, whatever it is, and one person will shout like, I've seen you on that fucking record, smoking that. And like, so you've walked in a room and 20 people know who you are, and you're there for the same reason as them.
Yeah.
And it puts you in a place of like, you feel different, but you're not. And it's like really strange. It's hard to describe.
Mm.
And I think after a bit, it just started like, I've been quite public about the fact that I struggled with my drinking. I always have done. I don't think that helped. And I think that mashed my head up with like, I just wanted to be, it got to a point where it was like, because I'd go to a party, for example, and someone would always say, he's on front of that album. And then they'd say to you like, hey up, Chris, fucking, you're a legend, man. Do you still speak to Alex or what? And it's like every fucking night. And it was like, I'm having to have a conversation about some guys every day of my life who I've not seen for about 4 years.
Yeah.
You know?
So, I mean, it must have kind of brought in some sort of anxiety to a certain extent. Like,
I think I were always searching for some sort of like, I were always searching to be recognised for something other than that. So I'd start a band. I had my own band. I'd always be coming up with like a little project. I was desperate for someone to like love me just for me. Like that sounds a bit deep, doesn't it? But it were I'm not just that record, you know. I've got feelings, like,
So,
which sounds ludicrous, but
well, that's just that, because the only other, probably the only other kind of famous album sleeve would be Nirvana, see the wee baby in the swimming pool. But he was a wee baby, so he got to like 18. I can mind there was reports, oh, this is what the baby looks like now, and I think he got a couple of interviews. But you're like an adult on an album sleeve and really recognisable, so you've been getting it all that time, whereas this boy's had a couple of interviews once he turns 18, so it's a totally different thing, isn't it? So,
and I don't regret it. I'd do it again. I'm not saying, I'm not trying to play like poor. I'm not trying to play a fiddle here at all. I had a good time and it were good and it were wicked. But I'll try to put you in some scenarios so you can understand. Like, I remember going on tour in Europe with my brother's band, Revenant Makers, when they were doing well in Europe, and they'd be like playing 2,000 venues, and I'd just be like doing merch. And after gig, band would absolutely blow it out of water, smash it. And there'd like be people outside venue coming up for my autograph when they've just played a 2-hour gig. And I'm like, I've only had a picture. I've done nothing.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, and then you start to feel bad and you kind of, as if you're kind of taken away for the band or whatever.
Yeah, it just put me in a really weird spot. I remember I remember being in Lisbon and someone had mentioned, we were on a stag do and someone had mentioned to barman, this barman said, where are you from? Because there were a lot of us. He says, oh, Sheffield. He says, oh, I know Carlos Carvalhal, who was Portuguese Sheffield Wednesday manager. And he says, I know Arctic Monkeys. And then someone has obviously said to him after, you know, that guy is in corner. And guys come up to me and said, listen, you don't have to fucking pay for a drink this weekend. You can have my bar. It's my favourite album ever. Do what you want. And I'm like, I've got a bar to myself for 3 days in Lisbon. Like, it's fucking... No wonder I got into trouble.
Yeah. And the thing is, am I right in saying you were on another album cover as well?
No, I did like a promo thing for Toddler. Toddler's a great guy. And this is Sheffield again, like, got a massive... he had a massive scene in, like, it weren't really my thing what they were doing, but I really respected Toddler because there's so many little scenes in Sheffield and he just popped up and he wanted to recreate it with a dummy, so I did it.
Yeah. So, and what was the thinking behind that? Was that like a kind of, was that in any way like a nod to?
I think it were a not. I think it were for his. It were for his promo. This, bearing in mind, this guy, no one knows who this guy is, and he's getting like thousands of people in warehouses at middle at night listening to like grime and stuff. It's mad.
Yeah.
And he were about to do his debut album, and he was sending promo out to press, and I think it was just a nod to that to get their attention, really.
Right.
And he were a good kid, so I just thought, well, if I can help him out and do that, then fair enough.
Is he married to Annie Mac?
Annie Mac, yeah, he went on Radio 1. He's a really nice guy, Toddler. Really nice bloke. Still speak to him now. I can
mind his first couple of songs when they came out. But I mean, again, it wasn't my cup of tea, but I can mind the first couple ones kind of...
He used to throw mad parties. If you wanted a good night out, like and get naughty into late into night, he would a man. He used to throw serious parties. And knows his music and all, got a lot of respect from people in his genre. But like you say, it weren't really my scene.
Yeah. So obviously you touched on your band, Violet May. So how far did you go with that?
One Salt Band had stopped touring and stuff, and what we're talking here, like 2008 probably. I ended up in this like fucking horrible job in a call centre, probably worst job I've ever had. And a lad across from me played me some. I'd not even entered my head to join the band. Never entered my head. And he played me some stuff that I'd done outside having a fag. And I really genuinely loved it. I was like, what's this? This is class. But I never felt, so I joined this band, we called it the Violet May. And we did all right, man. We went to Iceland, we did a tour of Germany, tour of Italy, did a UK tour. But again, every review and every thing we mentioned were like, first two sentences were Arctic Monkeys. So what you'd get is, you'd get people coming to our gigs, and I have a lot of regret about the live aspect. I were off my nut, we all were, and I don't, the live aspect, I regret, really. I was just saying regret, but it makes me feel uncomfortable. I never felt comfortable being in a band. And there were a lot of carnage going on. But we'd get people going at gig expecting to hear like an indie band, and we were quite heavy. We were more like
it's a different sound. I listen to
it's like Black Rebel sort of vibe, and quite a lot heavier, quite darker, and you know, they'd walk out. But we did all right, and we had a good manager. Alan McGee used to put us on at Brixton. But I just never felt comfortable. But weirdly, I've listened to the music since. I listened to it last year. Although we had a guy called John Gray, another guy called Brett, who had some wedge behind him and wanted to produce an EP. He sent us into Angelic Studios and paid a lot of money for it. And that EP, I absolutely, to this day, I love it. It sounds so good. And I can say that with confidence. And but they were taking ages to get it out, and everyone were a bit off their heads, and it were all a bit weird. So I quit. But they ended up getting another singer in and putting it out, which hurt me a bit. But I've got the recordings of me singing on it. But when I listen to the Violet May songs, like even now, like 10 years after, I really do like them. It's just the live thing that gives me creeps a bit.
You've been back on stage. I've seen that kind of a few weeks back with Steve Bracknell thing. So there's still maybe that wee kind of bit you would like to do that. Have you ever done anything with your brother? Ever done anything with the Makers?
No, I used to get up and do like, there used to be a tune called Bandits where like it'd be on Bandit and like a kid would walk into Boozer and take Jackpot while he's at bar. So I used to do that bit like cameo style. But me and my brother are tight as out. We're very, very close. He's my best mate. But yeah, we don't, in terms of like producing stuff together, we're more, he does his thing and I do my thing. And I think in between Violet May and this Steve Bracknell thing, I've got sober, which is like the main thing. It's changed my life.
Right. Well, we'll go into that because obviously I heard you, it was on a different podcast, Demo Tapes it was, and you were talking about it, and this wee documentary had just come out when it was at Vice and NME or something like that, wasn't it? So it was a thing about addiction. So it was brilliant. It's brilliant. The people that were on it, Adam Fajek and the guy for Sleeper Mods and all that, and it's brilliant for people to talk openly and honestly about it, because people in the music industry that are speaking out about it, there's that many fans that are feeling the same but don't know how to kind of tackle it. So it was a brilliant thing that you were doing. So obviously, if you want to touch on first how you felt and then why it was such a thing to make the documentary.
I kind of had like my rock bottom, as you say, in 2019. I'd just done it, man. I'd been boozing heavily all my life, but a lot of bad stuff were happening because of it, and somehow got help, and I've been sober since now. In hindsight, it were a bit early for me to start doing fucking documentaries on it, because I were only like a few months sober. A kid rang me and said, "Listen, I've got some money together. I want to do a documentary, a series of documentaries about addiction in the music industry. I've heard you've got sober." And obviously, with the Monkeys cover link as well, I think he thought, you can present this. So I did a small 3-part documentary on addiction in the music industry. It was frightening, really. Listen to some of the stories, it was frightening. Because it's such alcohol props up that industry, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Still.
Yeah. Well, that's it, because obviously, I mean, there's other people that appear on the documentary that aren't in bands, just other facets of the industry that have been touched with as well. So it seeps right
Yeah,
through.
every part of it's drenched in it, and you know, and you make him. It's such a savage industry, probably more so than football. I think like it's so cutthroat. You can be the hottest, you can be number one in March and be absolutely on scrap heap in September, and these people aren't going to be checking on your mental health after.
Yeah,
you know. And I think people find out hard way, really do. I mean, I don't know if I can influence that, but if them documentaries helped anyone, then it's done the job, and it's. I don't want to. All I don't want to do is preach to people about because I'm sober now. I'm some sort of like preacher, but it's important. If people ask me, I'll answer them honestly.
yeah. I mean, to a certain extent, I don't drink as often. When I go to gigs and things like that, a lot of the time I go to gigs myself, just because I can't be arsed taking something along and worrying if they're enjoying it or not. So I'd rather go to a gig myself and enjoy it, but because of that, I don't drink as much as well. Because see the amount of times throughout the Libertines and Kasabi and things like that, you go with a big crowd of folk and you get steaming before the band came on. You couldn't remember it the next day, you couldn't remember the gig. And you're spending like 30, 40 quid on a ticket for something that you don't remember the next day.
Yeah, I remember going to watch Libertines in Kentish Town when the film Can't Stand Me Now video. I can't remember a fucking song. Can't remember a note.
It's mental, innit? So, I mean, I don't touch a drink, and I try not to get my phone out either, because I hate that as well. Just go to a gig and see if people can go to gigs and live for it, that moment.
And well, this were all part of my problem. I'm not talking about phones I never lived in moment. I were always like fantasizing, or like when that happens, everything will be great, or when this happens, everything will be great, or like getting lost in my head. I never like took the time to just appreciate what were around me.
Yeah,
and I think that's even worse now with like people on social media and stuff. Having that, like, I was worried when I got sober. Would I be able to enjoy music again? Will I be able to enjoy football again? And you know what? It's fucking. I get it in its purest form.
Mm-hmm. And you remember,
I'm either feeling it or I'm not. You know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I try and that's helped me get sober, like living in moments. So I get it, man. But it's like boxers, isn't it? Boxers, footballers, musicians. The career span, unless there's only a small percentage whose career spans along. At 40, you're at scrap heap, you're done.
Yeah, well, that's, I mean, with the boxers, the boxers are done, and then half the time they go away for 10 years and come back and try and make a comeback because they don't know what else to do.
Nice. And it's the aftercare that they need to invest in.
Yeah.
I've done, since getting sober, I've done an occupational therapy degree. So I'm qualified OT now, and I hope that can be my way of like putting back in, do you know what I mean? And helping out. I don't know what sort of sector I want to work in, but to do something in creative industry or sporting industry would be amazing with it, do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, there is, like as you touched on as well with the football, there is that many young boys that issues with mental health because the same, if they've been playing football for 10, 15 years and then they get to like 23-year-old and the club saying, no, we've not got a contract for you and there's nothing, and then that's shooting your arse and you've not done anything at school, and it's
all that you've sacrificed as well.
Aye.
All you've sacrificed. I mean, you know what, like going out and watching bands and that were best years of your life, man, in 16 to 21. Or going boozing downtown and nice. I'm sure it's getting better, you know.
Yeah. So, I mean, that documentary, I watched it was like 12 minutes on alcohol. It said it was 3 parts, but I couldn't find the other 2 parts. Where
I don't know where they are. Yeah, there were one on heroin and one on cocaine.
Right. Yeah, because I could find the first one. Said, if you could let us know, and I'll post links to the other one.
Yeah, I'll find them.
Because, I mean, that one was cracking with Adam and Sleaford Moss guy and all that. So, obviously, you done the occupational therapy. When did Steve Bracknell come about?
Well, he's been around in my head for like 10 years. And I go back to this Sunday League football team with Milburn and Monkeys, that it's based on the assistant manager of that team.
Right.
And I had idea like 12 years ago, but I would same again. I could never apply it properly because of where I were.
Well, see that demos tapes that you were on, you were talking towards the end on that about you had some comedy thing that you wanted to do, and I got the impression it was this that you were talking about.
I put a video out 12 years ago, just doing a team talk as a joke. There was no meaning to it, no depth to it. And it went viral online because people just thought it were real, but I were obviously acting. And it got signed it got optioned by a company who did Toast to London and chewing gum and stuff like that. Right. But because of where I were, it all fell apart. And I said to myself, when I get my head right, I'm promising myself I'm going to go back to that character and try and do it justice. So I picked it up again nearly bang on a year ago. And people buzz off it, absolutely buzz off it.
I think when I seen it must have been about 6 months ago, it just started popping up on my Facebook. And I was kind of the same where I thought, is this real? It took a while to work out whether it was a piss.
Yeah, well, a minute I've got to. Twitter's where it really kicked off, and like on Twitter it really kicked off, and I get there's a good following on there, but I'm restricted to 2 minutes 20 on there, which is great because you get in, you have a laugh, and you get out again. But really, there's an whole other world I've developed around him. Like this guy's in his mid-40s, he's having a midlife crisis. Music doesn't represent him no more. He hates politics. Football's outpriced him, you know. So he's left. His wife's fitter than him, more successful than him because a salon's kicking off, you know. And he's left with this bunch of now-opers on a Sunday who, like, that's his only way to get any sort of, like, passion out of him, you know. So there's a big and you know what? It's about a bloke struggling with mental health, really. But I need the right platform to express that, and that's the next, like, stage, basically, for it.
So where do you see it going?
In my head, I think I've always seen it as a 6-part, 30-minute sitcom, but more I talk to people, more I think about it, more I think you could have fun with it. And I think, I don't know, there's a way that I could have fun. There's something to be said for DIY in it. It's got a very DIY feel to it. Like it comes from the streets. This bloke's very relatable to a lot of people. So is this something about putting stuff on, creating something ourselves and touring it? Do I end up on theatre stage? I don't know. I don't know really. I'm writing at minute. I'm writing to try and beef it out and get a series arc where they're on a cup run. This team are on a cup run, but they're facing a financial meltdown.
Right.
So you know he's trying to fucking raise funds and.
So what would you do with? See if you're saying that you're writing a series, have you put it out to MD? Have you told MD you're doing it?
Yeah, I've pitched to it before, and if this is me being honest, I've pitched to a few. I've been in rooms with. I've had enough support online to get into rooms with people because they're saying, "Well, what's going on here with this?" And I'm going to be honest because that's the only way I can be. I think what they see at minute is like an angry northern bold man. How do I word this to not come across as? I'm just going to say it as it is. I don't think these people understand the world I'm trying to describe. That sounds maybe like, and there is a bit of this, like, they need to see more writing. I get that. Of course they do. But, for example, I won't mention who it were, but one of the people I were in a meeting with said, my character's an electrician. And one of the guys said to me from a big place, said, well, I don't understand why he doesn't live in a terraced house. And I'm like, he's a fucking electrician. He lives in a very nice house. That's his problem. He's outgrown his class. Like, he doesn't. It's that thing that there's a bit of classism going on with it, I think.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. So these people don't understand the depth to it, and that's the only way they can get the depth is by watching their videos and sussing it out for themselves, really. Yeah,
because there's certain people who I'm aiming at, they understand it straight away. Yeah. They understand what he eats, what he drives, why he's pissed off. you know, and he is disillusioned with world. Of course he is. And there is, but I think they automatically think he's some sort of Brexiteer. He's not. He's not. He's like some sort of like right-wing Brexit guy. He's not. He's an extremely vulnerable guy who doesn't understand any of it. He's in the middle. He don't want it to be right, left. He don't want to be to right. He just wants it in middle and a bit back to how it were.
Yeah,
exactly. So you get some sense on matter here because you're all fucking balmy. You know what I mean? It's that I'm trying to get across.
Yeah. Well, I got it, man. I sent it to a couple of my mates at work the day. A couple of them in fitness teams, and they clicked right away. You know what I mean? They understood it because they played in teams like that, so they've seen that sort of character.
Brilliant. I mean, yeah. I mean, on the stuff that I've put out and online is just on one level really flat. I try and just make it funny. Do you know what I mean? But I still think the whole stuff that I've just discussed there, his backstory and the reason, it needs fleshing out and it needs another platform. But maybe this year's the year to do that.
Yeah, that's it. Just keep pushing on. That's
yeah,
it.
you got to. What I don't do nowadays, I don't like pin my hopes on everything. Like it'll happen. If it happens, it happens. As long as I'm like all right in myself.
Mm-hmm.
Long gone at days where I like pine for something that doesn't really exist. You just got to like do it for fun, and then if it goes anywhere, cool. If it's good enough, it'll get picked up.
Yeah, that's brilliant, man. I think it's got legs in it anyway. I think it can go places. So you can get that on YouTube though, can't you? YouTube and Twitter. I'll post.
Yeah, Twitter. If you can follow Steve himself on Twitter at Steve Bracknell. But you can search on YouTube for Steve Bracknell's Sunday League. Yeah. And it's all about the tales and woes of this man who's the assistant manager, not the manager, of this Sunday League football bunch of no-hopers, really, and trying to follow the dream to Premier League.
So I'll post some links for them on the
wicked. Cheers, mate.
On my notes. So 4 heroes to come for dinner. Hope you've had a good think about this. A lot of the guests can't what I looked into for. Some of them I had Gemma for Baby Shambles. She was on. She picked about 20 different people. So I say 4, but there's plenty of room for honorary mentions and things like that.
No, you gave me 4, and I've picked 4. I'm not going to have it. There's only 4 seats, so I had 3 heroes growing up. Now, I'm not going to try and sound cool about this. It weren't Joe Strummer. I liked all them people, Lennon and that. I loved them, but I'm not going to be cool about it. My 3 heroes when I grew up were Noel Gallagher, Chris Waddle, the footballer. But I've met them too, and I've had a drink with him, and I've sat down with him and talked to him, and I'm very, very, very grateful for the opportunity to have done that. It was a dream. So they're not coming. They're not invited. I'm not wasting a seat on people I've met. So Carolina Hearn is going to come. My first guest.
Right.
An hero of mine. I loved similar to what I said about that UB40 song. When I watched Royal Family, I instantly understood what she was trying to tell. The story she was trying to tell, like a lot of people did. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I get this. When she passed away, I felt really upset because, you know, I don't know if you feel this. There's certain people that I just think I would have got on with you.
Yeah, you could click with her straight away.
I just knew that if I sat in a room where I had a click with her and I'd have felt an affinity with her, and I think it'd have been reciprocated. I hope. And so Caroline's coming.
She just kind of came through to nowhere, really, with the royal family, didn't? And that just kind of. She had a thing on Fast Show, didn't she? She had come through that Granada, Manchester scene, didn't she? But like to be a woman that witty in '90s, and get to where she did, like love her. And I think, so Carolina Hearn's my first guest. I'm going to welcome her. Ladies first. She comes in, she sits down. Diego Maradona's coming in next.
Right.
just because it's Diego, and it pisses me off when people have these like Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo debates and all this, because for me, you need to be full package. And Diego Maradona was a rock star. He won a World Cup on his own. He were in with Mafia. He's got the old fucking caboodle, man. Diego's sitting at the table with fucking hell, me, Diego, and Caroline's going to go wrong, innit?
So, I mean, Diego sits all right to me, obviously, as a Scotland fan.
Oh, yeah, man, he's fucking lovely there, isn't he?
For what he done to England.
I understand what it meant for him to punch a fucking goal into England's goal after what we've been up to. I understand it. So you can talk to me about it, Diego.
But the thing with that is then, see to score that goal and then for the next goal to be just like total genius. And then he done a goal again, didn't he, against Belgium? Was it in the same World Cup?
Yeah, he basically took them like single-handedly to World Cup, winning the World Cup. And you know, to punch it in against England, who they've been at war with, and then do that, which is like genius. It's mythical, isn't it? How good that is.
There was players on their arse everywhere, weren't there? I think Terry picked up about 3 times.
I saw Peter Reid. He's a good bloke, Peter Reid, and I saw him at Wigan versus Wednesday because he's mates with their manager, and he said, "I've got to ask you." He says you couldn't fucking get anywhere near him. He says the bloke were an alien, low centre of gravity, you know.
Yeah, I mean, like you look at the players as well nowadays, like the prices that players are going for, and you think what sort of money would Maradona went for? Fucking
unbelievable. I mean, that's while he's off his head and all. You know what I mean? So yeah, Maradona, Carolina Hearn. The next person I'm going to have is David Attenborough.
Right.
I took my sister-in-law to watch him be interviewed, and it was such a beautiful hour just listening to him talk about what he's seen and experienced. And the reason I like Attenborough, and the reason if my ego is running away with me, or I'm getting self-obsessed, or something's troubling me, or I'm building something up in my head, all that can be released if I watch an hour of Attenborough.
Just calming, isn't it?
It makes me feel so insignificant in the grand scheme of things that my problem like loses all its power. You know, because I'm like sat there and I'm watching some like miles under ocean that I've never seen and looked, and I'm like, it's not really that. Whatever I'm worrying about isn't that important, man.
Yeah,
because you know, it gives me that sense of like calm.
I've got some issues with Attenborough.
Why?
Do you know what it is? I watch all these wildlife programmes, and I don't get me wrong, I love them. And I've spoke to folk at work about it a bit. I reckon I could do it. I reckon I could do like some sort of thing about badgers or something like that. But the thing is, nobody seems to get a chance. It's like whenever there's a new wildlife programme, it's just Attenborough. Attenborough gets a gig all the time. And I'm like,
let's be honest though, it's coming up soon, isn't it, gig?
Yeah. So, but that leads me on to something else regarding your Steve Bracknell. Have you heard this other boy? He's like what's his name? Steve Bashnell, and he's
Backshall.
Steve Backshall. So every time I was searching for you, he was coming up, and I don't like him either. I've watched a thing with him where he's in some Amazon jungle and he's messing about with this spider, and he's like, this spider, if it bites you, one bite and you get an instant hard on, and then after 5 minutes, that's you kaput, you can never use it again. So he's messing about and he's poking it with a stick and all that, and you're like, surely that would be the last thing you would do, just stay away from it. I mean, the guy's got issues. I don't like him at all.
Risking his hard on for that.
You know what I mean? Like you'll never be able to eat a hole again. and he's poking about with a spider. Oh, it's horrible.
Bracknell's got an issue with Backshall, and he's had it out on Twitter with him.
So
that's
what you should do. That's where Steve Bracknell could go once his football career's away. He could take care as a new Attenborough, and that would pass.
No, and you can have Attenborough. You can have Attenborough gig, and I'll have Backshall.
Right.
We can work together. There's enough money out there for us both. I want to, on next podcast, in fact, I want you to end this podcast with your Attenborough impression, or what you'd do as Attenborough.
Oh, that's me. That's my anxiety coming out now. I'll need to with it.
Or do it in your own time. You don't have to end podcasts with it.
I'll post it on Twitter for you.
Fucking brilliant.
But
I can't put you on the spot like that.
I've heard there was one came on last year, and it was Ewan McGregor was doing it. And I
Did
thought,
it work?
No, it was horrible. And I thought, no, Ewan McGregor, a Scottish guy, I should really get behind him. But I thought, no, I don't like him doing it either. So it turns out I don't want Attenborough doing all the wildlife, but there's nobody else can do it better than him.
He'll probably get fucking James Corden. And fucking, he's on fucking everything else, isn't he? Basically, whoever takes that job is like David Moyes at Man United. It's following Fergie, innit? You've no chance. So I can understand why they're using Attenborough until he draws his last breath, really.
That's a cracking choice again.
Yeah, Attenborough's going to come and just calm us down because me, Diego, and Caroline are going to get Larry.
Yeah.
Attenborough's going to calm us down towards end. And then my fourth guest, I thought long and hard about this, and this is a bit... No, I'm going to have him. I'm going to have Bill Wilson, the guy who wrote the book Alcoholics Anonymous.
Right.
Because essentially, it's because he wrote that book, he's probably saved my life. So I can't not have him in. And he's gonna hopefully provide me, Caroline and Diego with some serenity.
Yeah,
a guide to live in, because we know if we have to spend a lot of time together.
Well, he's going to
like.
He might not even get a chance to speak to you. But you know what I mean? If he's got Diego there, he could be all night with him.
Yeah, and Bill Wilson is a recovering alcoholic. His sense, so Diego could drag him back into midst of things. You know what I mean? But no, I'd have Bill Wilson because his words and his wisdom changed my life. And it's an amazing story how he came about. And then do I have to choose what I'm going to cook them as well?
I'll tell you that's for it's basically to see if you're any good at cooking. You know what I mean? So
I don't mind cooking. I do like cooking. If I've got a recipe, I'll cook. In fact, we've got a stroganoff on slow cooker downstairs. But I'm going to do a Yorkshire pudding starter with gravy and mint sauce.
Mm-hmm.
We're not messing about with that. And then Diego's brought us some Argentinian steaks.
Right. Cracking.
Which are going to be best steaks in Argentina if Diego's bringing them. I reckon Carolina Hearn does a banging roast potato.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to have some, and then Attenborough's what's he doing? He'll make veg. He don't want to be cooking meat, does he? He can do veg. And then
that'd be a turn up for the books if he came with like one of these big endangered fishes or something and says, "Oh, let's stick
fucking hell, yeah." you fucking fake. So we're having a bit of a Sunday dinner vibe, like mumsy Sunday dinner. Yeah. Yorkshire pudding starter, and then like a nice steak. We'd have to get some like posh, like we can't just lob a load of gravy on Argentinian steak. So we'd have to have some sort of like reduced Jew or something like that. You know what I mean?
That sounds brilliant, man. And they're all good choices. No one of them's been picked, I don't think, with any other guests. Cracking choices. Chris, thank you very much for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure. You've been on, that's an hour and a half of your time.
Wow.
I hope you all enjoyed this episode of Time for Heroes podcast. If you would like to get in touch, the best way is on the Facebook page Time for Heroes Podcast, or on Instagram at Time for Heroes Podcast, or Twitter at Time for Heroes P1, or drop me an email at timeforheroespod@gmail.com. You'll find Time for Heroes on all podcast platforms, including Spotify, Apple, Google and Amazon. Please leave a review where you can, share with others, and more importantly, enjoy.